So the true cat and mouse game actually only began once John was actually in police custody. Hey guys, thanks so much for clicking on the video. This is my review of the John Wayne Gacy tapes documentary on Netflix. This part two, I thought the part one was deep. It really got deep into the mind of the killer, really. On this part two, the true cat and mouse game really began once he was in police custody, and it didn't get exciting for him until after they actually did discover some bodies. That's when it really got really going, and he was literally, it looked like he was enjoying himself. He's enjoying himself. We all know, we've learned that he is pretty much, he's a narcissist, he's a control freak, and he truly is running the investigation. He's running them around like the people that worked for him in his construction business. Go here and do this, go there and do that. Sick. Sick, 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 sick. But we start right into this part of it. We jump back in 1976. There's another victim whose sister is actually doing some narrating. She's talking. This guy's name was Mike Bonin. He was 17 years old, and he was a worker. He had actually, another one of these stories where he just disappeared, and they're like, oh, he's just a runaway. He worked for, they heard he had worked for John Wayne Gacy. So, you know, that was like the kiss of death. Taking a job from him for a young man was just like the kiss of death. We had another guy who we actually seen in this. He was a survivor. We've seen him. He literally got into one of those little trysts with John Wayne Gacy, and it went through the whole little thing. It was supposed to be this little magic trick that he does with handcuffs. You do the magic trick with the handcuffs. He puts them on, and then he gets out of them, and then he tells the young man, you know, I'm going to put them on you, and then I'm showing you how to do it. You're going to be able to get out of them too. Well, some of that was a lure to some people, you know, young fellas, how they are. And some of these people, a lot of people, as we learn, are runaways, prostitutes, some of them, you know, and some of them were people who could probably benefit by being able to get out of a handcuff. And of course, the trick is really just a trick. They get the handcuffs on, and then once that's on, he got you. And he pretty much can do what he wants to do. He made some statements that were just so disturbing. Like he was saying, you know, like, I'll get to it. I'll get to it. But some things he said just really disturbed me. But anyway, 1970, in June of 1970, he was released from jail. He moved to Chicago. And then he meets Carol. Carol was a divorcee who had two daughters, who ends up in 1972. She married him. He had told her when they start messing around with each other that he was bisexual, and then he went through with her his version of what bisexual was. Told her he's not gay, that he despised gays, and thought that they were weak. And that's not only his belief, that you know, that he would just tell her that's the way he believed. He literally, he despised what he foresees as a full-on homosexual male. He despised them. Had hatred for him. 1973, and the funny part is, at some point, he actually ended up not being bisexual, and he was literally only having gay sex. So the nerve, how dare you? Okay, but anyway, that's a whole other situation. 1973, he started his business, his construction business and all of that. he was being questioned at some points as to why you always hire these young guys. And he played the card of, oh, I'm helping them out, and I'm shaping them and molding them into the right way of doing it. He was fulfilling his appetite. He wanted to be surrounded by them. He was, child, mess. And it was, his thing was not really homosexuality, because his thing, it was mostly young. They were too young. They were too young. It was, he had a lot of issues, Then the one gentleman that we actually did do interview with, he was telling all these different stories of him working with him. He says, one time I remember one of the first things I did was out at his house. And I dug this digging out a barbecue pit. And he said, I dug it, and he's screaming and yelling until, no, you got to dig down further. And he's saying, barbecue pit don't have to be dug that far down, but he wanted it 10 feet. And he said, and then when I came back, I thought it was kind of strange that it was already filled with cement. Mess. He's the one who actually did the little handcuff trick, and actually he was a wrestler. He got out of the handcuffs and ended up taking and putting he thought he playing a little game with John, because he was a wrestler. He did high school wrestling, and he done flipped John and slammed him and jacked his ass up and then put the handcuffs on him. And he told him, you're the only one that's ever gotten out of him and got him on me. You're the only one. And he said, I didn't think a whole lot of that. Like, he was when he did his interview, he was going through a lot of hindsight. Hindsight is 20/20. There was that little situation. He's like, what did he really mean by that? Then he was saying, there was another fella that they were very similar, and they were kind of cool because they had the same kind of cars. This dude was missing. When that dude went missing, he said, once they actually ended up finding the guy, he found him. He said the place where he found him, he was in the garage, where he had dug a hole and threw his body into the hole in the garage and then put cement over. And he said, I remember seeing that fresh cemented floor, and there was really no reason for that floor to be cemented over there. Meanwhile, that's where the boy was. Again, he said it was weird how he said, he just quit. And again, there were a lot of teenage boys. So, teenage boys will just quit a job and go and think nothing of it, and that's it. You just don't see them. And he said, but the strangest thing, why did he leave his car? Because he loved his car so much. He left his car. So he went through a lot of little situations where he was dealing with hindsight. It's like, poor thing. 1978 is where John ended up creating Pogo the Clown. And he talked about his thing with clowns. He would go to, that was again some of his politicking, him and this clown thing. He's like, everybody loves a clown. Everybody loves the clown. And then he would do anything he could to be able to clout chase, to be able to rub elbows with some of these people in this Democratic Party. He wanted to be in these politics. So going and playing the clown, he could actually throw himself into, he was always volunteering for things and stuff. So he would do handicapped children, children's hospitals. He would do different big Democratic events. He would show up there as a clown, as an entertainment, because entertainment, clowns get around kids and adults. And the comment he made, I said some of them comments, when he said, clowns can get away with anything. Clowns can get away with murder. See, he was saying stuff, and normal people don't, it's like, okay, whatever. But he was meaning everything he said. What a sick ass. He meant every word of the things he was saying. Terry Sullivan was the Chicago prosecutor that was working on it. And he was saying, how they were getting sick of this shit over in Chicago. They was trying to get it together. They was getting sick of it. The higher ups was like, okay, now, what's going on? Like, we need something. This is weird. We need something. 1975, the wife left. 76, there was a divorce that was it for that. So then he had the house all to himself. He started spiraling. Before she left, she started saying how, he didn't, the sex, they were having problems about sex. And then he used her as an excuse. That was one thing about him. Everything is everybody else's fault. Everything is everyone else's fault. It's always somebody else's fault. He's never at fault for anything. He can explain his way out of anything in his mind. In his mind. He explained his way out of anything. Even his gayness. He didn't want to have sex with Carol because he was getting tired. No, baby, you were gay. That's what the problem was. You were gay. And then he was becoming increasingly violent because he was fighting. You don't want to be gay. You want to be bisexual. Your version of bisexual. But now you ain't even sleeping with your wife. And she's fussing about how you can't sleep with her because you could not perform. You could not perform. As you move on, you craved the thing that you wanted. And she wasn't it. And then when she started fussing, then he says, oh, well, I'm just going, people are accusing me and stuff and keep asking me why I hiring young boys. Now you tying the two things together and you're making excuses for what you're doing. Everything is everybody else's fault. Moving on. So 1978, we go back to 1970 because we keep going back and forth. 10 days into the investigation, that's where his lawyer was like, he was stuck under attorney-client privilege. And he was trying to give hints to the police, but he couldn't tell what he knew. He couldn't do it. He can't tell what he knows. But they ended up getting him because there was a situation where they were tailing him. He gave a young guy some marijuana. He had 3 joints. That was on him. He was popping Valiums and driving real crazy through the snow in Chicago. And they were like, okay, enough. They didn't want to do the traffic violations because that would be like harassment. And they were already skating on thin ice with him, as harassed because they didn't really have anything to hold him on. And they finally decided, enough. We're going to do it. We're going to get him, and that's it. And here's another comment he made, and I said, how dare you? When he said, I was worried. He's getting paranoid and saying he's worried about something happening to him. I beg your pardon? And you done killed how many people? And you're worried about something happening to you. Now, I've never heard anything so narcissistic in my life. That is truly, truly a piece of work. You have murdered multiple people over several years. And you're sitting around worrying about something happening to you. You don't think something should happen to you? You don't think karma was riding your back at some point, sweetheart? You got to be kidding me. Anyway, seriously got issues. December 21st, 1978, the second warrant, search warrant was granted. And the higher up, the judge that granted it, told that one guy, Terry Sullivan, said when he granted it, he told him, get that son of a bitch. Because at this point, they were pretty much, everybody was like, he did something. He did something. And they're really, all of this, they're not looking for all these other people. They're literally thinking about Rob Peast. They're still looking for Rob Peast. He's a 15-year-old. So they're pissed off about the 15-year-old. They don't even have a clue about what they were getting ready to find. They go on out to the house and go into the crawl space and digging around, and they find something. They're like, pop, got him. We got him. And then that's when, like I said, the cat and mouse game began. And he's down there. He says, well, did you all go into the crawl space? And they say, yeah. And he says, okay. And then he starts talking. His lawyers are telling him to shut up. And he's like, oh, no. No. This is like his moment. He's now in that mode of, yes, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up. And he starts talking. And At that point, did you do this? Did you do that? Go here, go. All of that kind of stuff. Crazy as hell. Crazy as hell. And then that's the sickness of it all. Like he really was a piece of work. Um, the killing basically started in 1972. He told of the first person that he actually killed 3 days into the year on January 3rd. Somebody picked up from, a runaway picked up from the bus station and took him back to the house and killed him. Claiming that the person attacked him and he stabbed him a couple of times and threw him on down into the crawl space. And they were saying that story didn't even sound believable. It didn't sound believable. Always you had the sex and all of that, and then, then you said that the person attacked him in the morning. They didn't believe that story, but that was where he said that the killing started. December 22nd, they started the property excavation, and they started with the crawl space in the garage, and just body after body after body after body, just ridiculous. And then this is when it really twisted. They go back to him and they said, now we did all of this. The count was up to like 21 bodies, okay? It's become a media circus. And those of us who are that was living back then, remember. I was like 6 years old. I was 6 years old when all that stuff was going on. This is when the game started. They go back and they're telling him, we're still looking for Rob Peace. Where is Rob Peace? He started playing this game and spinning and talking in circles. And then he says something about water, and he's not below ground, but he's not above land. Let's just think of him as in the water. And they're like, what? What in the hell does that mean? So now it's a cat and mouse playing a puzzle game. And that's where this piece ended out. And now I'm ready to go into part 3, which is the final part. He's becoming very irritating. It's irritating the hell out of me. The cops and everybody who is working on this case, they are just disgusted. And it's becoming very irritating. And he is just literally enjoying himself. Sick and twisted. Sick and twisted. Anyway, let me go ahead and thank y'all for watching. I'm going to go ahead and watch this third part, and I'll be back with you all with the review shortly. All right, later.